In 1987 in Alabama, Walter McMillian was sentenced to death for a murder he did not commit. Even though he was eventually exonerated in 1993, Walter McMillian would go on to suffer from mental and physical problems for the rest of his life, saying, "I am a different man." People are put to death every single year, and you or I could be next. Because of how many innocent people are killed by the death penalty, at least 190 since 1973 that we know of, according to Death Penalty Info. Any of those innocent people that are here to come could be someone that we know, hence why the death penalty is so unethical. Overall, as I've previously stated, the death penalty is completely unethical and must either be seriously reformed or abolished. Today, I'll talk about the causes of the death penalty, the problems that result from it, and solutions that we can use to move forward as a society and get rid of the barbaric practice that the death penalty is. To begin, I'll discuss some of the problems that the death penalty causes in our society. First off, as I have previously discussed with the anecdote of Walter McMillian's story, innocent people are put to death at an alarming rate. Even if only one person is put to death that's innocent compared to 90,000 axe murderers, one innocent person's life is still lost, and that is priceless. According to Unilad, as I have previously stated, According to Death Penalty Info, 190 innocent people, and maybe even more that we don't know of, have been executed since 1973. Another problem with the death penalty is that it violates the Eighth Amendment, in my personal opinion, and probably yours after I discuss this next story. A young 16-year-old boy named Willie Francis was sentenced to death and recounted his story of the electric chair in a harrowing way. Willie actually survived the first attempt on his life because there was a mess up with the system. He said that it felt like razor blades and pins and needles. Other people have also recounted survivor stories of the death penalty as feeling as the worst pain they've ever felt and completely inhumane. The Eighth Amendment prohibits any cruel and unusual punishment, and I think that brutally electrocuting someone or injecting them with poison is definitely unethical. I think that the death penalty as a whole is cruel and unusual, and that the most effective punishment of all is life in prison. For this is neither cruel or unusual, but completely deserved for the crime they committed. To kill somebody who has killed is a complete violation of the Eighth Amendment. Some of the causes of the death penalty are the fact that there are racial biases, the fact that there are unfair trials, and the fact that there is a desire for revenge in our society. To start off, I'll talk about some of the flaws with the death penalty and what causes it to have so many problems. First off, there are many racial biases within the justice system that cause men of color to be the most executed minority in the United States. 53% of death row inmates are either Hispanic or Black, and even though they make up only 31% of the population. Furthermore, Black men are 4 times more likely than white men to face the death penalty for the same exact offenses. All of this data I got from NACDL. Oh, and I got the Willie Francis story from UNILAD. So, obviously this is an issue. And I think that for a death penalty to be ethical, it needs to be completely unbiased so that it's fair. Another cause of the death penalty is the fact that there are many unfair trials that cause it to be applied to an inmate. One story is of George Stinney, a boy who was 14 in 1944 in South Carolina. According to deathpenaltyinfo.org, he was executed for the murder and rape of 2 young girls that he did not commit. The poor boy was isolated from his mother and received a short trial in which the jury quickly made up their minds. He was sent to the electric chair sobbing and clutching his Bible before he was killed. These kinds of trials are not completely unknown, and as we've seen with the biases, Black men are more likely to be executed, especially for a crime against a white woman, than any other group in the country. George Stinney and Willie Francis were both two young black boys that were sentenced to death. Even though Francis did commit a crime, he still was young, and to execute a minor should definitely be classified as cruel and unusual punishment. The last cause of the death penalty is the desire for revenge. According to S.R. Gross in a 1993 University of Michigan publication, he said that a 1991 survey of Americans said that 50% believed that a life for a life was a valid implementation in the government. Now, obviously, this is an old source, so I will bring up the 2021 Pew Research survey that found that 60% of the country believed that the death penalty was a good punishment and supported it. Now, this desire for revenge can be traced all the way back to the same origin as a life for a life, or the phrase an eye for an eye, in the Mesopotamian Hammurabi Code. Of course, this was thousands of years ago, a time period where we should have left the death penalty to begin with. Even though revenge can seem like it will avenge a person's death, people that have actually been face to face with this scenario think differently. According to ACLU-UNC, Lorraine Taylor, a mother of two murdered boys, was completely anti the death penalty, saying that revenge wasn't the answer for her, that it did not bring her peace. Similarly, according to a PBS.org article by Laura Santhanam, a woman named Belinda Kreitz said that her family was not soothed by her cousin's murderer being executed, and that her aunt actually attempted suicide, while the rest of the family also struggled. As we can see, this desire for revenge in our society that causes the death penalty is actually not completely validated at all from first-hand experiences. Overall, I can say for certainty that due to the problems with the justice system, the death penalty is completely unethical, which is why I want to talk about some solutions. First of all, I feel like the overarching thing we should do is completely abolish the death penalty. There will be no such thing as innocent victims of the death penalty if it is abolished completely. Furthermore, if the death penalty is to stay, it should be completely reformed. Perhaps something like a blind trial to prohibit racial discrimination, or something that will keep the juries from bringing in their own biases. I also believe that to make action as us citizens, we should petition the government and ask them for these reforms or for complete abolition so that we can move our society forward and stay away from the 1,000-year-old practice of complete revenge. The death penalty is completely unethical, and as I've shown you, the causes, problems, and solutions all show that it is a flawed system that results in many innocent victims. Walter McMillian and George Stinney will never have their livelihoods back, and George Stinney lost his life on the electric chair, while McMillian lost his livelihood. Both of these stories can show us how problematic a system that sacrifices innocent people for the sake of revenge is completely and utterly flawed. I hope that today I've been able to show you guys the problems with the death penalty and encourage you to make change. Thank you for your time.